novel 1984 by George Orwell, the government of Oceania keeps revising historical records to always support political explanations of the party. The government claims that Oceania had always been at war with Eurasia and that they had never been in alliance. However, in reality, it's the opposite. The following extract represents historical revisionism in the constricting form of manipulation and ignorance. In the context of 1984, the characters prevalent in the extract are O'Brien, the main antagonist, and Winston, the protagonist of the novel. The novel 1984, written by George Orwell in 1949, is a fictitious, prophetic, and nightmarish vision of the future of society after World War II. The importance of this contextual evidence lies in 1984's genre of dystopian fiction. The novel 1984 makes a major governmental-based claim that who controls the past controls the future, and who controls the present controls the past. This statement is an example of amplification, meaning that the author turned a compound sentence into a compound complex sentence in order to increase its worth and understandability in the context of the story. To support this claim with one of the novel's main themes, historical revisionism, Orwell uses the following extract from Part 3, Chapter 2, to demonstrate the extreme that historical revisionism is taken to under a totalitarian government. Is written in a third-person narrative point of view, which, especially in this passage, is beneficial in its purpose of emphasizing the godlike, overbearing figure that the party and Big Brother play over the society of Oceania. To begin this passage, Orwell walks the reader through an intense dialogue between two prime symbols of 1984. O'Brien and Winston are two main characters who often shift roles and motives. Specific to this passage, O'Brien no longer plays the role of an ambiguous, trustworthy, and rebellious co-worker, but an authoritative and overbearing figure that controls the reality of Winston's life. Winston, on the other hand, is usually seen as retaliative, until his rebellious personality is broken down by O'Brien, who is the closest authoritarian to Big Brother himself. Continuing through the passage, Orwell deliberately includes condemning dictions such as mentally deranged, suffer, and disease. To their effect, a foredooming tone is revealed as Winston is sentenced to torturous actions according to O'Brien's diagnosis of being mentally deranged, suffering from a defective memory, and being unable to remember real events and persuading himself to remember other events which never happened.
Under the theme of historical revisionism, O'Brien is pursuing his job in curing an affected victim of thought crime because he believes in real events that the party is trying to erase. In this sense, O'Brien controls the past, he also controls the future. Therefore, O'Brien controls the present. The statement is a paradox on its own, but can be sustained through Orwell's usage of verbal irony in the second paragraph of the extract. O'Brien says to Winston, "The truth, please Winston, your truth. Tell me what you think you remember." This simple exchange communicates a form of linguistic imperialism in which O'Brien doesn't ask what Winston knows is the truth, but what he thinks the truth might be. This helps the reader understand that because of the government's historical revisionism policies, regardless of what the real truth is, the real truth will never be recovered because it lies in the hands of the party. On the same topic, O'Brien goes on to further explain a hallucination of an experience that Winston had in the past. Orwell gives anecdotal evidence of historical revisionism to support the party's claim that who controls the past controls the future, who controls the present controls the past. Some years ago, you had a very serious delusion indeed. You believed. This anecdotal supporting detail allows the protagonist and the reader, with the help of a third-person narrative point of view, to reminisce a story that may tell the end of Winston's life, further revealing the importance of small details in Orwell's work. Furthermore, Orwell repetitively used the phrase "you believed" to exemplify O'Brien's perspective of being all-knowing and appreciate Winston's intelligence or lack of ignorance. You believed that you actually had held it, a crime-revealing photograph, in your hands. To leave the reader with a continuation of the foredooming tone, Orwell finishes this passage using condemning diction to describe Winston's last agonizing effort. Before completely releasing hold of his first identified rebellious symbol, the reader's last thoughts remain on O'Brien's shifted symbolic representation as the authoritative figure when he gives the final word, "I do not remember it," the crime-revealing photograph.
During World War II, the Japanese military deceived, kidnapped, and forced thousands of women into sexual slavery to service its troops. But for many years, Japan attempted to conceal this dark part of its history. Even today, the Japanese government falls short of fully acknowledging these women's suffering. Despite public outcry, it has not offered a formal apology. And earlier this year, Japan went as far as requesting that an American publishing company revise its history in its textbooks.
Materials related to war crimes were destroyed by the Japanese government. Former Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad kept questioning the befall of the Holocaust, and Iran published children cartoons imposing the Holocaust denial. Other deniers claim that the Jews have practiced the faking of the Holocaust in order to gain political and financial advantages from around the world.
We have no ambition in Iraq except to remove a threat and restore control of that country to its own people.
The reason for America's invasion of Iraq is stated to be because of Saddam Hussein's threat to the United States by the development of biological and nuclear weapons. This was the only reason stated by the Bush administration for many years. However, it is now claimed that other factors contributed to the invasions, as for example, to abolish a dictatorship and implement a democracy, or to potentially gain control over oil. In this case, the government has control over the past, as well as control over the future. Therefore, the government has control over the present, because they've kept silent about this information.
North Korea's regime probably has the most similarities to 1984. Even nowadays, North Korea's citizens are forced and manipulated to only worship their leader, Kim Jong-un, and any religious faith and love to something superior is forbidden. To implement these biased ideologies, North Korea rewrites history textbooks and ensures that children from young age are taught to be devoted to their leader and learn about his alleged supernatural powers from birth. North Koreans are also forced to consider America as their greatest enemy, like Eurasia and Oceania. North Korea's history books state that the US committed horrible war crimes on North Korean citizens and that South Korea and the US started the war. However, in reality, North Korea initiated the war.
Vision of event is present in the media when broadcasting news, watching movies, and listening to the radio. When comparing different news outlets broadcasting the same news, differences in the way the event is transmitted to the audience or reader will be noticed. While some outlets leave out certain information and important facts that can make the country or government seem responsible for a certain event, creating bias, or even to speak in the favor of them, others simply change the terminology and connotations to portray an event either worse or better than reality. This can be connected back to the fact that the past can be controlled by controlling the present. These modern-day real-world examples help establish the idea of control in both 1984 and in life. They clearly demonstrate how by simply changing or denying past events or removing certain details, any figures can control what people believe and how they behave in the future, in retaliation to our particular event, group, and towards their own government. Also, by changing details in the present to justify a certain behavior of an individual, group, or government, the future can be changed in terms of what people are made to believe. Who controls the past, controls the future. Who controls the present, controls the past.